Hey, how we doing? Dan Hunt here at the CatchMark SportsNet studio, uh, bringing you Heads or Tails. Pretty cool collaboration with Meraki Performance and CatchMark SportsNets. Really diving into both sides of what we're saying the coin as it relates to program development. So, we're just excited to be here. This was something that was dreamt up and thought, hey, let's give this a shot a while back. Scott DeCamp had me on the podcast, and as I was leaving, offered the opportunity and said, hey, if you ever thought of a podcast or wanted to do something and ever use our studio, please let us know. And so here we are about a year later here with Heads or Tails. So appreciate everybody who's actually joining live. And if you're not joining live, but you're catching this at another time, just grateful for your time and being able to, tune in and connect here. So, this is Heads or Tails. So a little bit about me. Again, my name's Dan Hunt. I run and operate an organization, a company called Meraki Performance. We really dive into the mentally emotional side of performance, specifically in athletics, but also with businesses and organizations. And so, we wanted to provide a resource and an opportunity to really invest not only in athletics in West Michigan, but also any leader who's saying, hey, I want to connect and find a resource in somewhere where I can continue to develop, not only to be the best version of myself, but also how can I help others do the same. So that's part of the vision of this. And I want to back up a little bit and just give some history of who I am and how we really got here. And so I grew up actually right here in Whitehall, Michigan, ended up really loving the sport of tennis and just took off. Like that was something that brought me great joy. It was a great connection with my grandfather, was able to be a part of some great teams. And from there ended up just chasing down dreams of being a coach in different spaces. And before Sports House it was Norton Pines, and I was working down there, ended up leaving there, going to Ferris State, ended up getting the opportunity to coach at Ferris State, experienced a lot of success there. And upon leaving there, started really diving into this mentally emotional piece of how do you help people and athletes just be where their feet are and really maximize themselves in facing the challenge in the athletic arena. And it just brought me great fulfillment, great joy. And since then, I've just continued to dive into this, continued to chase this down, continued to develop my knowledge, and more than anything, contribute back in helping people be in the moment. I believe deeply that is where we find restoration. That's where we find our authentic self. That's where we find the best version of ourselves. And so I've just been on this pursuit of really trying to do that as much as possible within athletics and in professional organizations. With Meraki, the word actually Meraki is a Greek word, which there's no English translation for. And it means to do something with such focus, intention, and heart and love that you leave a piece of yourself behind. And that's the essence of Meraki Performance. We want to help people be in the moment so much so that they infuse the environment around them and they leave the place better than where they found it. And we believe being in the moment is our place of greatest potential. And so that's Meraki Performance. Our core belief, more than anything, is that greatness is within everybody. That if we can find that greatness, we can help clarify that greatness, that we can develop thought patterns and skills and strategies to bring that out. And we believe that greatness happens on purpose. We believe it happens from a place of authenticity or identity. We believe that it happens in the moment, and we believe that it happens through teams. And it's for that reason that this idea of the podcast, the Heads and Tails, really came about. And as you look, and I've worked with many different athletic programs, not only at the high school level, but college level, there's two sides that coaches are constantly going back and forth between. And it's the one side of, how do I help this individual be the best they can be? How can I help this individual really maximize themselves and develop and bring out their potential? But then there's the piece of, how does that fall into line as it relates to an entire team? As you're trying to form an entire culture, as you're trying to really align common behaviors and standards, like how do those two things, come together? And so I believe that it's two sides of the same coin. I believe that you have to not only help develop the individual athlete, but you have to align them and develop an environment where they can really develop themselves. Environment is very key, and I think that we have to create the environment that really brings out the best in people. And so, in my time doing this, now I've been working in a consultant role for probably the past 6-7 years. I continue to hear from coaches and even business leaders of like, there's just not enough people doing this. There's not enough resources out there. Like, I'm able to read the book, I'm able to, this podcast or different thing, but I don't know how to apply it, or I don't know how to use it, or I don't know what's the next step. And so that's really the gap that we're trying to fill with Heads or Tails. We're trying to fit into that gap and be able to answer real-time questions that coaches and leaders are having, and be able to walk through that process and share our experience, our knowledge, and also maybe send you in the right direction for different resources that can help you further. So, we want to, again, sit in that gap and be that resource. And even for players that are, team leaders or captains on a team that are like, I just don't know what's next. I don't know how to keep pushing that. Like, that's why we're here. And so this is going to be a monthly podcast to cast some vision. We're looking at, once a month having this podcast. But then on the flip side, the following week after the podcast, we're hosting a coaches meetup where we want to invite coaches in, and we want to just talk further in depth of what we talked on the podcast, while also saying, hey, what are you experiencing real time? How can we navigate this and discuss these things? Because the thing is that we can gain knowledge, and that's great. But in order to really put it into action, like, that's where not only fulfillment comes in, but we retain that when we begin to put it to action and discuss it. And that's what we're trying to do here. And so, I want to dive in and really talk about today. Now that we kind of casted some vision a little bit, I want to talk about today and highlight some maybe principles in how I categorize teams as I'm going in and working with them, and giving coaches and anybody listening to this an opportunity to really lean in and maybe evaluate your own program. If you're a student athlete, if you're an athlete and you're wanting to look at this too, like, what's the individual lens for you in looking at that through this lens too? So one of the things that I want to first start out with is specifically with performance and specifically with getting the best out of people. There's really 3 reasons why people do not reach their potential. What I've found in my years of not only coaching at the collegiate level, but also consulting now, is that there's really 3 main reasons. And the first is a lack of clarity. The reason why people don't always reach their potential, or we aren't able to bring that potential out, is there's a lack of clarity. There's a lack of clarity of why we're wanting them to do what we're wanting them to do, or a lack of clarity of where we're trying to get them to go. The second thing is skill. Like, a lot of times we, like individual athletes or teams, we're expecting more out of them than what they actually, their skill and ability is. And so we need to lean into, and if the challenge is too great, or we're not able to back the challenge down, develop the proper skill, and then increase the challenge, then we're leaving them in a state of just like, I don't know what to, like, I don't know what to do. And almost they shut down. They get to a place of apathy. And so one of the main reasons why people don't reach their potential or that peak performance is there's a lack of skill. There's still skill that needs to be able to develop for them to really reach the standard that we're seeking. And then the final thing is desire. And I highlight desire because desire is something that, as coaches and leaders, there's a sense that we can influence, but out of those 3, that's the one that we can't impact. Like, we really don't have tons of impact on desire. I can inspire you listening right now. I can't push you and force you to do something, right? And if I do that in a sense of I have authority over you, or I'm a coach, that change is only going to last for a moment. And then as soon as I'm not there, they're going to go right back to what they were doing. And so desire is something, especially for you individually, if you're listening as an athlete, desire is something that you have to look within and really cultivate and seek. I talk about hunger. And when you think of, like, coaches talk all the time, and you hear athletes like, you just got to have this hunger or that hunger. Like, It's that genuine, like, you need to keep developing and growing and becoming the best you can. Like, you have this desire deep within you, like hunger to bring that out. And that's something that only the individual can cultivate. Again, as coaches and leaders, can we inspire? Yeah, we can inspire. Can we like, can we say, hey, this is where we're trying to go, and get them to move a little bit? Sure. But if we ultimately want them to have the desire and the drive and motivation themselves, athletes, we got to look within ourselves and find that. And so, thinking about those things too, I want to highlight that clarity and skill is something that, as leaders and coaches, we can influence the most. That's the place that we can influence the most. And what I hear typically when I'm working with coaches, especially first time coaches or programs, I hear all the time, like, these kids, like, they just don't have the desire, they don't have the work ethic, they don't have this. And I hear this quite often. And I want to say here, like, that's no longer an excuse. If you're a coach or a leader, like, that can't be your excuse. You cannot focus on that solely. I'm challenging you right now to focus on the things that you can control and heavily influence. You can heavily influence creating clarity. You can heavily influence seeing, casting vision and creating clarity around that, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. You can heavily influence how you coach and teach skill development. Those are areas that you have heavy influence over. In terms of that athlete's desire, or whether they actually want to be a part of the program or not, that's not something you can impact slightly, but that's not something you have a lot of control over or tons of influence. And so, to waste our energy on that just doesn't make sense. You're actually taking away from your program's potential, your team's potential, and some of those kids that are there that are all bought in. And I also believe, and I've seen this countless times, that when you focus on clarifying, creating clarity, and creating something to focus athletes' attention on, when you bring that clarity and you develop that skill, most of the time, desire takes care of itself. I've seen it time and time again that actually, when you're doing this and you're creating, and they're developing in their skills and they're gaining more confidence, all of a sudden kids start having more desire. They start showing up more. They start, pushing themselves further. They start challenging each other more. And the reason why is because they have the skill, and there's clarity of why they need the skill, and they're facing the challenge. They're experiencing success. And so, thinking through that again, like reflecting right now, and where am I spending the most energy? Where am I spending my most time? Is it on really clarifying what we're doing, where we're going, and why we're doing it? Is it really focusing on developing the skill and developing these things as much as I can? Or is it like on the desire of student athletes and getting frustrated with that? Needing a drink of water. The other piece that I want us to think about too, as it relates to performance, and this is both, again, the individual side of things, the head side of things, and the tail side of things, but from the individual standpoint, is we have three basic, I would say, spaces within us, or three basic components, okay? And the first is that we have a physical body. We know that in athletics. I think that physicality is glorified. Yes, like, physicality matters. It definitely matters. Strength, speed, agility, those things. But we put such an overemphasis on that we miss the side of really the other component of the mind, the mental side of things. And I think we're getting into a space where more and more we're leaning into that mental side. But that mental side is vastly, vastly important. And there isn't enough resources out there, but that mentality and the mindset and the mental thoughts, which is what we lean into all the time with Meraki, is something that is really critical. And I'll bring it to this point. I was in New York a couple weeks back, actually about a month ago. And, if you've ever been to a big city and you've seen a big city, you've walked like out of that subway and you look up and you're looking around. When you think about it, all of those buildings, all of those structures, the whole layout of the city, that began in somebody's mind. That began in somebody's thought, an idea of, like, what if we did this? And then them taking actions and steps towards that. And I highlight that because I say the genesis, the beginning of everything is a thought. So if I want to change something in my life, or I want to do something better, it starts with the thought of, hey, maybe there's a better way, or I've seen something that I think, hey, that looks good, and then I think to myself, how does that work for me? How can I put that to action, right? And so the beginning in that thought is what begins everything. It starts driving everything. And again, we're leaning into that more and more, and we're hoping, and the vision for this is that this will be a resource for individuals, athletes, but also coaches to lean in and say, how can we develop in that space? How can we create the thought loops and create the mindset, which is the individual's approach to things, that's in a way that helps them enhance their performance. And then the last component is really our heart, all right? And I know this is like, people say, yeah, we're talking about athletic. Like, at the end of the day, I've watched this specific component in what I call the soul, the deep desires that kids and coaches have. I've watched that maximize more people and teams than anything else. I've watched that alignment in desire, that alignment in heart, that it 10x's everything they do. And you've seen that before, where like, we just don't know how that happened. Like, how did that kid do that? The kid just has heart, right? And what I say is, it's that desire, that deep, deep, deep hunger, like we talked about, that deep hunger of like, I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep going. And when those three things, when that mind, that body, and that soul is aligned, that's when you experience greatness. That's when that greatness comes out. And when there's alignment there is so much confidence and force and momentum and power that it almost becomes unstoppable, especially when that's on a team. When you're able to align common thoughts in physicality, in schemes and strategies, the physical aspect with the deep desire of a team, and you align that together, that's when you look and you go, how is that team doing that? How is that even possible? And that's a super, super, super powerful thing to think about. And I think that we've seen that before, and we wonder, how do we cultivate that? How do we do that, right? And that's part of today, and what I really want to kind of end with, as we talked about performance, and we talked about the mind, body, and soul, is looking through and thinking, with my program, do I have a common vision? Do I have a common desire, a deep desire that everybody is pulling towards? As a coach and a leader, I want you to think about, do like, where do I want to see my program at? And I'm all for results. I'm a big results guy. I love to win. Who doesn't love to win? We're, in athletics, it's great to win. But I want you to go a step deeper, and I want you to ask yourself, what does the win provide me? Like, what does that win provide me? If I go out and I win the championship, if we win the district, if we win a state title, what does that provide me? Right? What is it that fulfills in me? All right? And I know that's a big question, but here's why I ask that. I've worked with countless teams that are striving to, we want to win a state championship, we want to win a national championship, we want to win it all. And I ask them, if you won it, if you right now it's yours, you won it, what changed? What changed? And the things that I typically hear is, I'd have more confidence. I'd have more self-belief, right? Like, I would prove to everybody that I was able to do it. Like, I would, one thing is, I heard people, I worked with a team that was like, we want to put our team and program on a map, right? We want to be recognized as the standard. And I think those are all great things. But what I always go back to and say, why can't you do that right now? Why isn't that something that you can do right now? Why can't you do that exact thing? Why can't we create the map? Why can't we have that self-belief? Why can't we develop in that confidence? Because the teams that end up winning it all, the teams that end up performing to their peak, that teams that end up experiencing that greatness, those are the teams that don't find validation from the external results. Are those external results great? Absolutely. But what they find it is in what they do, in the daily work that they put in, right? The self-belief that they have in each other, in themselves, right? They have that confidence level. They create the map, right? And then drive and follow that blueprint to where they want to be. That it's more important internally that things are aligned and that they're doing what they say they're going to do every single day that's aligned to their vision in what they value. And so I want you to think through again in this, we're going to invite people out to this meetup, but in this next week, think through what are the things that I deeply, deeply desire as a leader? What are the things that I deeply want my kids to experience or characteristics I want them to have? Because that's what you align them on. I got some notes, but one of the things that I would say is like, it's where we're going. And it's not the means goals. It's not the wins. It's not the scholarships. It's not the check mark. It's what do all those things lead to? What's that end goal? And one of my good friends leads a program here in West Michigan. He talks all the time about their vision for their program is that they want to help develop all-American men, all-American dads, all-American husbands, all-American people. Like, that's their vision. And they're going to do that every single day through their sport, right? They're going to do that through their program. That's a vision. And I can tell you that this individual that has really just captured this program and has totally shifted an identity where these kids believe it. These kids absolutely believe it. And they're aligned with that vision, and they're taking daily actions towards that vision, and their confidence has increased, right? And there's been complete transformation and alignment. And so I want to challenge you, if you're listening, if you're an individual athlete, if you're a coach, what is your vision? What is the end goal that you desire? And I want you to think through and really clarify that. And if you're able to clarify that, then you're able to not only align yourself to that, but then you can also start aligning athletes and teammates towards that. All right. And so, yeah, I'm going to kind of wrap this up. Our goal is to keep this around, 18 to 25 minutes within a car drive potentially, or between practices and things like that. But as we wrap up, I want to first just say thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Please, 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 if you found this beneficial, not only subscribe, but go ahead and share this with other people. Share this with your teammates. Share this with other coaches. Share this with other people that you think, hey, man, talking about performance through this lens of clarity and skill and desire, and talking about the three components of the mind, the body, and the soul, like, this is really, really, really important. And I think you would benefit from it. Like, share it with people. We want to be a resource, especially here in West Michigan. The second thing is that we want to invite you out next Monday, December 18th, at Sports Page Grill in North Muskegon area at 5:30. We're going to host a coaches meetup, and we want to bring everybody in, and we just want to discuss this further. We want to have conversations. We want to see what's clicked, what's not. Maybe there's some specific questions you have we want to bring up, because we want this podcast to be something that you are able to bring questions to, and then we're able to answer them. And we're able to wrestle around with these, and we're able to, kind of alleviate maybe a pain point that you're experiencing or your program's experiencing, and helping you kind of break through that barrier that you might be facing. And finally, I just ask you to go ahead and share this on social media. Check us out, Meraki Perform, at Meraki Perform on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're constantly putting stuff out there. You can check myself out too, Coach D Hunt, on all those platforms. And then also CatchMark SportsNet. I know you guys are probably catching this right now on that, but definitely show them some love. They are an organization that continues to spread love here in West Michigan, West Michigan athletics, and I'm just grateful for the collaboration and the partnership, and are just happy to be connected with these guys. These guys are awesome here. And so, as I wrap up, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your time. Again, connect with us, ask questions, and we hope to see you over at the Coaches Meetup on Monday, December 18th. Appreciate you guys. Greatness is within.